Well, we are getting new eyewitnesses eyewitness video from western Syria, where intense fighting broke out overnight. Have a look at this. Now, this shows the Syrian army opening fire after an ambush attempt along the Aleppo-Latakia highway. Dozens have been killed in that fighting. Officials say Assad-linked militia are responsible for the attacks, but no group has actually claimed responsibility yet. This is the worst outbreak of violence we've seen since the transitional government came into power. Ibrahim al-Asili is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Latakia, the heartland of the Alawite minority sect, which Assad was a big part of course. How big a security challenge is this for the new government going forward? What do you understand to be happening on the ground?
Great to be with you, Becky. I would say the last 24 hours were the most challenging for Syrians since the day that Assad fell on December 8th of last year. It started with some militias and forces loyal to Assad ambushing and attacking and surrounding checkpoints for security forces belonging to the new interim government on the coastal area, where it's heavily populated by the Alawite sects, the sect that Assad himself came from. But of course, also we've heard lots of reports over the last 3 months that locals were mistreated by some of these fighters and some of these checkpoints. However, I would also add and highlight that those attackers and those militias themselves also mistreated the locals and prevented them from having their own leaders to talk to the interim government in Damascus. It's a very complex situation there, because the challenge is security, is political and social as well. And I would add a final point here to show the complexity, that there are also reports about Iranian efforts to support these militias, the remnants of the Assad regime on the coastal area, and to smuggle weapons from Lebanon into the coastal area, hoping that they would destabilize the situation inside Syria and find a way to go back and have some influence inside Syria in the post-Assad era.
Rebuilding Syria is a massive challenge, and getting sanctions lifted will be absolutely critical for this new government if it is to be successful. The EU and the UK have begun lifting some restrictions. The US has not. Is that going to delay things further? One assumes so.
Thank you so much for this question. It's very important, because everything I was describing comes on top of a dire economic situation inside Syria. We have some indicators show that unemployment is somewhere between 35 to 40%, and it goes up in some regions up to 85 to 90% among the population. And we're talking about a wide segment of society that's young, that's angry, and it's hungry as well, and they don't see that things will get better on the near future with sanctions are still in place. Lifting sanctions or waiving at least some of those sanctions for 6 months to a year by the United States is crucial to stabilize Syria with all the challenges that it's facing domestically, and add to that the regional challenges. I mentioned the Iranian challenge, and also there is the Israeli challenge with Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that the government in Damascus won't be allowed to deploy forces in the south. In the northeast, we have another challenge with the Syrian Democratic Forces supported by the United States. So Syria is divided today. To unify it, we need to show some support and probably at least allow some economic recovery in the country to happen, so we alleviate some of that anger and tension going on within the Syrian society.
Yeah, until these sanctions are lifted, of course, it's difficult for countries who want to get involved in the reconstruction, or at least the support at this point, Qatar being one of them, Saudi Arabia perhaps being another. Difficult for them to actually get equipment in, start any effort in support and reconstruction because they are prevented from doing so by these US sanctions, of course. It's good to have you, Ibrahim. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.